Hello, I'm James,
Hi, I'm Jimmy,
and welcome to A Job Done Well.
the podcast that helps you improve your performance and enjoyment at work.
Good afternoon, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, James. How are you?
I'm doing fabulously, thank you very much. I'm very happy to be back after Christmas and New Year and having got through all of that. So what are we going to talk about today then?
So today, James, we are going to talk about meetings.
Okay.
And we are going to have the discussion, are they the lifeblood of work or just corporate treacle?
Yeah,
So
or something that sucks the life out of you, which is another possibility.
And they can be. So we are going to talk about their importance, and we are going to share some hints and tips that will help you ensure that they don't run your life and you run them effectively and get the most out of them. So a really important subject to get the new year going.
Fascinating. I can see the numbers of listeners plummeting already. So what have you been up to then?
So far this year, I've been suffering from flu. So
hang on. Is it flu or is it man flu?
No, actually, I think it is actually flu. I've been on antibiotics.
The real
and
flu?
Everything.
Medically
So
certified?
it's proper, the proper thing, the real deal.
Didn't sound very nice.
What have you been up to?
In my infinite wisdom, new year, new me, I went into the gym, I used my ill-used gym membership, and I managed to put me back out like a pillock. So I've been hobbling about like an old man with a walking stick, much to my wife's disgust and my children's joy.
Is there any photos of you with a walking
There
stick?
probably are, actually, yeah. There probably are, yeah. I'll see if I can dig one out for you, yeah.
Show me next time.
Right. So why are we talking about meetings then? Have you got any interesting facts, figures, or statistics about meetings? Are there any interesting facts, figures, or statistics about meetings?
Interesting is a subjective word when it comes to meetings, but yes, I mean, for many of us, meetings form a big part of our working life. On average, 28% of workers' time is spent in meetings. So that is probably the most significant part of the working week for many.
Hang on though. So if 28% of their time, that's also 28% of the labour bill.
Yes, exactly. So 28% of the costs, of labour costs in the UK are spent on meetings. And so therefore it's a massive investment.
And getting even really analytical about it, I would imagine it's actually worse than that then, because it will be disproportionately weighted to the higher earning people.
Yes, because more senior people tend to spend more time in meetings. In fact, statistically, it might be only 28% overall, but middle managers, it was 35%, and I'd imagine for senior managers even more.
I was very senior, mate. I reckon I was scheduled into about 120% of my time in meetings. That's how important I was.
See, this is where it falls down for you, James. You're an analyst, and you're talking about 120% of your time. That's not possible.
Well, no, it was what was paid versus what I did.
Yeah, of course. Lies, damn lies, and statistics.
Yeah. But to that point, it is a bit of a badge to honour. The number of people who say, I'm back to make bad meetings all day.
I know, and it is interesting because that's people say it as if, this is a hardship. And actually, I think people are, like you say, they're proud of it. I mean, back-to-back meetings, that's how hard I work. That's how important I am. I think that's how people justify themselves.
Was my job take on? I was director of going to meetings and colouring in. I was very good at colouring in as well. But yeah,
you were. But it is reflective of your popularity, your importance, the power that you have, the involvement you have in everything, how important you are to everything, how hard you work. Nearly everyone I've worked with at some point or another defines some sort of success around meetings and their attendance at meetings.
Right.
So they end up making the world go round.
So that's how much time we spend in them. Are there any statistics on how well run they are?
No, they're not. But one thing I thought was interesting is that there's some data on how long meetings are on average, but also comparing that to the average attention span. And 7% of meetings are actually longer than people can hold their attention. So that's already onto a loser there.
What is the average attention span?
18 minutes.
Okay, so if you hold your meetings down below 20 minutes, you're all right.
15-minute meetings is the way forward, clearly.
Why are meetings so badly run and why are they corporate treacle? What's your thinking on that?
Well, I think some of the things that I've experienced, you've got the classic too many people invited, the wrong attendees.
Sorry, hang on, let me get on there. There's a pet peeve of mine. When you walk into a meeting, there'll be 20 or 30 people there. And the first thing they all do is pull out their laptops. I mean, just dreadful. Why are they there if they're not going to pay attention?
Exactly. And, poor timekeeping as well in many organisations. It's okay to be late because you're busy and you're important and you hold up everyone in a meeting for the 5 or 10 minutes before you arrive. That's just wasteful of other people's time, apart from being disrespectful.
Well, and it's interesting. I read something about operating theatres in the NHS. In some ways, an operating theatre is a type of meeting. You've got a lot of people there with a job to do, yeah? And one of the key reasons they were saying that the operating theatres were empty and not being used was that people didn't turn up on time, because the surgeons didn't turn up on time, the nurses didn't turn up on time, and because the nurses were there, the surgeons didn't turn up. And you just ended up with empty operation rooms because people didn't turn up on time. So a big deal, I think.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also...
Although, hang on, I should be honest, I'm probably not in a great position to be Mr. Punctuality, am I?
People don't need to know that, James, that, you're one of the culprits. But the lack of purpose and structure in a meeting, I don't think a lot of meetings, it's thought out, why are we having this meeting? What are we trying to achieve? And how are we going to do it? So what's the structure of the meeting? So those often cause me issues. Also, and I would say this, in the last podcast, we talked about strengths, and one of my strengths was getting things moving. So funny enough, I found that at times, meetings moved at the pace of the slowest person in the room. So who was the least comfortable with the subject, let's move at their pace, rather than a sensible pace for getting the job done.
Linked to that, you also get to the situation where everybody has to have their say. So people just pile on, and you go round and round making the same point for 10, 15 minutes.
We used to bring stuff to various meetings, and people have different levels of expertise in it. And therefore, you want to have contribution that is based on some sort of expertise. But we used to find that everyone had to have a say. You had the most senior lawyer in the company having conversations about technology they didn't have a clue about, they didn't have any interest in, because everyone had to have a say. They had to have a say.
Yeah, and you get people talking endlessly about the mundane points rather than the important ones. So you can have a conversation about a new system that you're putting in and people wouldn't have a clue about the technology, so they keep quiet. But you then have a conversation about how many car parking spaces you need around the office, and it just goes on and on and on forever, because everybody thinks they need to have a say.
It's like when you were a kid and people used to say to you, you've got one mouth and two ears and you should use them in that proportion. In meetings, that's not how people are. They just want to dominate proceedings.
Yeah, and then there's also the whole ego thing. People need to prove they're the smartest people in the room.
Oh, yeah. We had a CEO who, it didn't matter what the meeting was about. Their only goal was to prove how clever they were. So it is personal agendas versus actually the agenda of the meeting.
So what are the worst meetings you've been to? Have there been any howlers? What things really wound you up?
For me, some of the most boring meetings where you didn't need to attend, somebody had invited you to because they felt they should invite you. They used to sap the life out of me. How many times you come out and that's an hour of my life I'm never going to get back?
Yeah, I've got a list, mate. I've got a list. So things used to wind me up. The worst one was the guy I used to work for, and he had a meeting at 8:30 every Wednesday morning, and everybody who worked for him had to be there, and everybody who worked for him had to be there. He didn't seem to care a damn that people had to get their kids to school or were trying to get to work. Yeah. There's just something about respecting other people's time. That's one of the things. The other thing was the Dulles dishwater corporate communication ones, which were mandatory, where you would get and you would be broadcasted to. I got caught out in one of those. It's like 2-hour meetings. So I'd go to the gym, I'd go and listen to it while I was on the treadmill or something like that. And that was all right until they had a breakout group, at which point, unfortunately, I had to cut the call really quickly.
I have done meetings for my Peloton before now.
Have you?
So,
well, it's not just me.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Since we moved into a world of virtual meetings as well, that's put another angle on this. Personally, I thrive from getting a response from an audience. But when you're faced with a load of cameras off and you don't get any interaction with people, I'm not convinced they aren't on their Peloton,
Might as well be talking
or
to a
cooking their
wall.
tea or doing whatever they're doing. And people sit on a Zoom call looking at their second screen, doing their emails. And that sort of lack of engagement that the virtual world has brought and made acceptable is incredibly poor.
You get what you wish for. If you make the meeting mandatory, don't be surprised if people aren't that engaged.
Just being clear about why you're having the meeting. What's in it for me?
Yeah.
Why do I want to be at this meeting?
One final one from me is people presenting really confusing information. I'm drifting off meetings a little bit here, but I went to one meeting once a month, and this bloke used to present this graph, which was a circle sort of graph, and nobody knew what the hell it was doing. You'd be sitting on a Zoom call looking at it, and everybody would be turning their head round to the side to try and work out what on earth it meant, the bottom of the graph. Oh, just dreadful. Anyway, so those are some of the worst meetings you've been to. But it's not all bad, is it? Meetings can help.
The show you're listening to right now brings you insights to help you improve performance and enjoyment of work.
It takes a long time to produce, but we think it's well worth it. It's all in the name of helping you getting the job done well.
All we ask in return is that you share the link to this show with someone that you think would benefit from it. And if you haven't already, click on follow the show wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Anyway, let's get back to the show.
You do need meetings to get stuff done a lot of the time. You know, you need to get people together, you need to have discussions, you need to be able to bounce stuff around, you need to be able to develop ideas, you need to be able to share information, you need to be able to get people engaged.
Just simple stuff like making sure that actions get completed. I used to go to an operational meeting in the factory every morning, and they used to write the actions up on the board to make sure that the actions got done. Each morning you'd have to explain whether the action got completed or not. So those sorts of rigours I think are really important.
There are lots of really good reasons why meetings are an effective tool in the workplace.
Well, and one of the positive thing about meetings is it's all about communication. You have to cooperate with the people around you. If you're not communicating with them, you're not cooperating. They are all important. So there you go, a bit twixt and tween on meetings.
As a concept, they are not optional.
Right.
As individual meetings, they should be optional, and you should think about them and you should do them well. So as they are broadly not optional, it becomes imperative. Do it really well. Do it really well, because you're going to invest a quarter of your time and a quarter of your workforce, quarter of your investment money into meetings. So do them as well as you can. But it's not a big focus for organisations. I mean, they just let them go. They let culturally, they run them the way they run them.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So we talk about cost saving a lot, and we have a whole stupid debate about, taxes and corporate hospitality, but we never have the conversation about how are you running your meetings.
Exactly. You are spending, like say, a quarter of your wage bill on meetings. Surely you want to make sure that's as productive as possible. But no, the cultures evolve in meetings, whether it's heavily governance and controlled, or whether it's invite lots of people, whether it's turn up late, whether it's free flowing because we're all innovative and we don't like structure. Whatever it is, your corporate culture will have a way of running meetings, and it likely is not the most effective.
So what should people do differently? Are there models or anything that will help?
Well, funny enough, because I know you like a model.
I do.
James, so I thought we could start off the new year with some models, and I found a couple which actually I think were quite useful, and I think if I had done them, then my meetings would have been a lot more productive. It's the 5 Ps.
The 5 Ps.
First one.
I should be able to remember that. Go on then. So what are the 5 Ps?
Yeah. Purpose is the first one.
Aha.
Is it clear why you're having a meeting?
Right, well, I have been known to say in meetings, what are we having this meeting for? What is it we are trying to achieve?
Exactly, and that's one of your favourite things, James. I knew you'd like that one.
Yeah.
But do you really need to have a meeting? Could it just be, sometimes there's just an informal conversation. I just need to ask you a quick question, and I put in a half an hour meeting for a quick question. Could it be by email? Can you slot in that quick question to another agenda? So first off, what's the purpose? Do I really need to have a meeting in order to fulfill that purpose? And ensure that everyone who then is in attendance is focused on that purpose.
Okay.
So that's first P, purpose.
Right, second
one,
yeah, go on.
participants.
All right.
Who do you really need? Not who wants to be there, who you'd like to be there, but linked with that purpose, who needs to be there. Third P, process.
Well, and hang on, they need to be there. Links to your next point, process, I suppose. But because they are decision makers or they are stakeholders, or why would they need to be there?
Exactly, but being clear who it is and why you need them there.
Okay.
Because actually, it is fundamentally disrespectful to invite loads of people to loads of meetings. They don't really need to be there because you're burning their time.
Yeah.
Third P, process. How are you going to conduct the meeting? So quite often we'll think, right, we've got to have a meeting to talk about this decision, this investment decision. But have you really considered what the agenda is, the process, how you're going to get people contributing, what are you going to do in the meeting?
Yeah.
Payoff.
Yeah.
Is there a clear
Or
outcome
is there any
to the
bloody
meeting?
payoff whatsoever?
Yeah. So what is the payoff? We want an outcome out of this meeting. So what is that outcome?
Yeah.
And finally, fifth P, preparation.
Ah.
What does everyone need to do to have a really productive meeting? So it's a classic, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. And don't be lazy. I'd be honest, the number of meetings I went into in my career where I just thought, I kind of broadly know about this subject, I can wing it. Prepare, have some thoughts. We've got a really interesting episode coming up around questions and just the need to prepare the questions you're going to ask in advance. So, preparation.
All right.
The 5 Ps. Purpose, participants, process, payoff, preparation.
Very good. So there's a model. Go on, any other rules of thumb?
Well, I found an interesting one, and I definitely would have fallen foul of this one nearly every meeting I went to, but it's the 3x3.
The 3x3.
So this is to help people self-manage their contribution to meetings.
Yeah.
So it's a rule of thumb that says when you have a contribution to a meeting, there should be 3 people who contribute after you, or 3 minutes should pass before your next contribution to that meeting.
Yeah, there've been lots of meetings where I've been in, mate, where I've just been sitting there thinking, holy fuck, don't anybody say anything to me? I'm just keeping my head down. Does that fall into the 3x3 or not?
Well, no, I mean, I think it works both ways, doesn't it? 3x3 encourages you to think about your contributions. Either you're contributing too much or not enough, but I think general consensus is this should help people who like to dominate the airwaves.
All right, yeah, I managed a couple of those.
So a couple of model and a rule of thumb to help run these.
And if I find myself in the position where I just am literally back-to-back meetings and I losing the will to live at work, what would you do then?
Well, I think most people feel that they're in too many meetings, and one of the things that I've found, which is a pretty good practice, and it's worked in most workplaces I've been in, get somebody to have an independent challenge session of your diary. So we get caught up because we are meeting addicts. We get caught up because our ego says we want to be invited to all these things. So we end up with diaries full of meetings. Whereas somebody independent can look at it and say, well, do you really need to be at that meeting? Why are you seeing that person? Is it because it's for their interest or yours? You know what I mean? So that challenge thing I've found on average, and I've done this many times, on average, you can get at least 25% of your meeting cut out of your diary by getting somebody to really challenge your thinking around your diary and how you're managing that.
Yeah, because you've got other things to do. Yes.
The other thing I think certainly for senior people, I mean, we couldn't talk about meetings without mentioning PAs.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
The PA is the most important person in a senior person's life, and they should be, treated accordingly. They often hold the keys to how meetings happen and how meetings are run.
I always have a PA, bless her Jane. Our main outcome in life used to be to schedule me for every minute of the day. If she'd achieved that, she thought she'd had she'd achieved her objectives.
But Jane used to do that so that she didn't have to spend any time
Is that what it
on
was?
your desk.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
A sensible
Maybe.
strategy. But if you are a senior person, managing the relationship with your PA and helping them understand what your priorities are and how you want to run things is vital. If you don't have a PA yourself, managing the relationship that you have with the senior people's PAs in the organisation is also key. So they are the gatekeepers. They can get you in or out of meetings. So that's another thing to have a think about. But essentially, I do think it comes back to the fact that we are addicted to meetings. So, as the old Grange Hill story goes, don't be Zamo, just say no.
How many people do you think who are listening to this know who the hell Zamo was?
I know, for those who you don't know who Zamo was, Grange Hill was a classic program about school, and everyone...
For people who are well into their 50s, yeah.
It went on for a while, mate, I'm telling you.
1980s special, come on.
Zamo was a drug addict at school, and he fell under a bad influence, and he took lots of drugs. And the Grange Hill cast did a song that went to number 1 in the charts called Just Say No.
Yeah, I'll see if I can get a clip of it.
And you'll also discover it wasn't just an 80s thing. Grange Hill lives on.
Just say no, say no.
But there's a very good cultural point there. I used to work with a guy called Bob. And Bob decided that he wasn't going to waste his time in the mornings in meetings. He was going to do what he said was called thinking time. And he blocked out his diary to put in thinking time. And with the benefit of hindsight, that was a very sensible thing to do. But actually, you will remember that everybody used to take the mick out of Bob something rotten because it wasn't cultural. You weren't allowed thinking time. You had to have meeting time. So it's not as easy as it sounds.
That's a great point, because I think unilaterally you can't change a culture like that, and that doesn't work. You do have to figure out how within your organisation's culture you can adapt.
So there you've got it. Let's summarise that then. What are the key points you would make?
Meetings are one of the biggest investments that organisations and people make in terms of their time.
Yeah, and sorry, the summary. So much for the summary. Let me just pile it. The point you made earlier is all important, right? It's easy to say, just meetings, meeting etiquette. But as you rightly said earlier on, what percentage of people's time?
28%.
28%. It's a phenomenal cost in organisations. Yeah, so it needs to be done right. This isn't just some sort of stupid conversation just to pass a podcast.
Yeah, and actually, the often popular utopian view of we don't need meetings, I don't believe is correct. I think meetings do help communication, collaboration, getting the job done when done properly. What we don't need is a load of bad meetings.
Right. So they're expensive and they're done badly.
Often.
Yeah.
However, they are important to get stuff done. So we've shared some hints and tips that we've experienced of what bad looks like and what good looks like, and some helpful models.
The 5 Ps.
5 Ps. Can you tell what the 5 Ps are,
I
James?
can, because I'm looking at it now. Purpose, participants,
cheating,
process,
cheating.
payoff, and preparation.
I think those are, like I say, it's a model that we found, but it resonates with our experience of running effective meetings.
Cool. Right, I think we put that to bed then. Saved organisations millions.
If they listen to us, made them more productive and more engaging workplaces. We will have great meetings now, and there'll be no more of that. That's another hour of my life I'm never going to get back.
Lovely.
So hopefully you've enjoyed today's episode on meetings. And if you want some more advice from James and I on how to run effective meetings, then get in touch.
Super job. Speak to you later.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers now.
We cover a whole host of topics on this podcast,
From purpose to corporate jargon.
but always focused on one thing: getting the job done well.
Easier said than done. So, if you've got unhappy customers or employees, bosses or regulators breathing down your neck,
If your backlogs are out of control and your costs are spiralling, and that big IT transformation project that you've been promised just keeps failing to deliver,
we can help. If you need to improve your performance, your team's performance, or your organisation's, get in touch at jimmy@ajobdonewell.com.
or James@jobdonewell.com.